Welcome to Dreamforce. This is exciting. First day of Dreamforce, right? Those empty seats, I'll assume they were at the Pep Up Tech party last night, right?
Hi, I'm Bonnie Hinners, and I'm really thrilled that you guys came to join us so early in the morning, first day. Anybody got energy still or jet laggy? Wave your hands if you've got energy. There's some energy in the room. Yay, thank you. And thanks for making it up the escalators quickly and getting into the first session. Really pleased to see you guys. I'm a Salesforce MVP. That means I don't work for Salesforce, but I have been in the community since 2004. I think I got my first developer org. And I really enjoy working on the platform, and I enjoy sharing my knowledge with others, because that's the way we all get better. Salesforce does a great job of promoting the community through user groups, which they support but allow to be independent, which is really awesome. It means that we can all meet and discuss the things that we need to discuss that fit our needs. I'm one of the co-leaders of the Salesforce nonprofit user group here in the Bay Area. That's how I came up with my Twitter handle, SnugSFBay, for Salesforce Nonprofit User Group SF Bay Area. And the community is awesome. If you've ever had a question answered by Steve Moe, he is in the audience. You owe him a beer.
A little early for the beer, Steve, or you good to go? All right, we're good.
So we're really pleased to show you guys how to test flows today and get you going with all the new features in Winter 19.
And I'm Nate Lipke, and I am a developer. I do work for Salesforce, and my day-to-day is writing Java. I actually work on Flow and Process Builder, and hopefully a lot of you are using that. But I do not develop on Salesforce. I develop Salesforce. I just want to make that distinction. And with that, we can officially start Dreamforce with this wonderful slide.
Woo! First of Dreamforce for you guys.
That's right. As Bonnie calls it, the pay it forward-looking statement. Every time you see this, you should give $1 to a charity.
Pep Up Tech, if you haven't got your own favorite already picked out, it's a good one you'll hear more about during Dreamforce.
What it actually says is, don't believe anything I say and don't make any purchasing or stock decisions based on future-facing stuff. Anything that is already available, which will include Winter 19. Everyone should have that in their sandbox, hopefully, by now. So
I do. Yep. Raise your hand if you've got Winter 19 in a preview sandbox or a developer org.
There you go.
Woo.
So, yep. And thank you. Thank you, Trailblazers. Thank you for coming. This event doesn't happen without our customers, so thank you. So we are in Fourth Industrial Revolution, is that what we want to call it? But everybody has an idea for an app, how to make their life better, how to make their employees' lives better, their customers' life better. But building an app isn't enough if you have a different app for your customers and your service reps and your salespeople. So, and everyone wants a seamless experience, whether that's on their watch, their phone, their voice device. So we want to build apps, and we use processes to make sure everyone has the same app. Process can be something simple, like when you call up and say, I need a new credit card, they ask, do you still have it? Was it damaged or was it stolen? And if it's stolen, you have to do dispute claims. If it's just damaged, I can mail you a new one. I wear out my credit card a lot. I don't know what that says about me, but. And I'm sure all of you have had some struggles building them. So we've had the Lightning platform for a few years, and Lightning platform is anything from low code, no code, to professional development. And it's bringing this all together, and that's some of what we're going to talk about today. And using various tools that you've used, like Apex and Lightning and Flow Builder, you can do all sorts of neat things. Who is that? TDX? Trailhead DX?
Trailhead DX, anybody?
Only a few, wow, okay. Well, Trailhead DX, we announced Lightning Flow. What Lightning Flow is process builder and flow with added abilities for Lightning components.
That is awesome.
Less time, less code, quicker time to deployment. And, all right, just quick poll in the audience. Who is an admin?
Wow.
Oh, good, thank you. Developers?
Who raised their hands both times?
Yeah, quite a few, yeah.
Awesome.
Quality engineers? A few, all right. Everyone should be doing that too, right?
So if you hear the word admin-developer, that's the admin who's also a developer, or the developer who also knows the admin side of security and platform.
Any executives? Students? A few students.
Awesome.
Welcome, the future's exciting. Anyone do more than one of these? A lot of people, right? Anyone do something else? Marketing, all right. Now, here's a tough question. Who's written Apex in the room?
Woo!
Ooh, good.
Oh.
Who's written a flow?
Wow.
Wow, thank you. Process builder?
Who has tested their flow or process builder already? Woo!
Whoa, a few of you, all right.
Preaching to the choir.
Who's written a validation rule? All of you owe
Wow.
Steve a beer, right? Who's written a custom object, custom field? Quite a few of you. Who's broken their org? No shame in this one.
Yeah.
Who's had yeah. So if you've done any of those, we're going to tell you you're a developer today, because if you can break your org, you're going to want to test. So therefore, you're a developer already, and you should be a quality engineer. So I'll let Bonnie talk to this slide. This is her quote.
This is actually something that I told a group of Salesforce folks when they invited customers, as they often do, to give them feedback. I said, hey, admins are developers now. They've given us so many great clicks, not code solutions to building awesome automations that are totally customized to our business processes. So now they need to give us the skills and the tools to test those, to act like developers, and to really create that proper developer process.
So why to test? Who likes phone calls at 3 in the morning? No hands? Come on. But basically, keep your sanity, keep your org sanity. It is defining the rules of what your org needs to do. We're going to give an example where we're going to say contacts have to have a mailing address. Simple rule, but what happens when that breaks? You get the phone call. And that is a rule of your org that you have defined, and who likes bad data? What? No one? All right. So, and every time you do a change set or a deployment or a development or Salesforce does a release, there's a chance of your org breaking, right? Who knows about the hammer? A few of you.
Hammer test.
So the hammer test is before we do a release, we run all the tests in various customers' orgs. It's more or less random which orgs it is, and we see how many customers we broke. And I'm not too proud to say that I broke a whole bunch of customers this release, but the hammer caught it, and I was able to fix them before most of you noticed. There might have been a few other releases in there, but the earlier you run your test, the earlier Salesforce knows there's a problem, and therefore, hopefully, we can fix everything before you even notice it. So we're here to tell you that you can test your org. Who's familiar with CSVs? All right, data importer, exporter. And how about SOCL? A little less, all right. But using those two tools, really, you can test your orgs. Just one bit of background. Apex test, which is what we're going to talk about, run in what's called the data silo. And what that means is your orgs do not have any data in them while the test is running. We don't delete anything, but it's not visible, right?
It's a virtual database that runs with your tests.
All your accounts, opportunities, cases, custom objects, if you look for them, they're not there, which means you can insert duplicates, which is great because then your test doesn't break because someone enters an account with the same name you already had.
And you know that hammer test that we were talking about? If you don't have a data silo built for your test will not be part of the hammer test.
That is true, yes, because when we run the hammer, we copy what's called your metadata. Who's done a setup-only copy or sandbox? So that's basically your metadata. Anything that's in the setup menu, your custom object definitions, not the data, the custom fields, the record types, your profiles, all that stuff is available during your test. So your org should behave how you expect, but it won't have the data in it. So here's the basic steps. We're going to set up some test data using the CSV. We're going to verify with the query, which is SOCL, and we're going to assert that it's correct. And CSVs, for those who don't know, your column, it's a comma-separated value. It's a text file, but it works in Excel. or Quip or Google Docs. And your columns are going to be your fields, your rows are going to be your records, and you just load them into Apex with test.load data, and Bonnie's going to demonstrate that in a minute. SOCL, less you are familiar with, so I'll spend a little more time. It starts with the select, and then what fields you want to see.
What does SOCL stand for?
Salesforce Object Query Language.
Ooh.
If you've heard S-Object, that is also Salesforce Object. So select what fields, from what object, where is your conditions. And here's an example. For simple tests, we like selecting the count. So how many cases do I have, right? Select count from cases, or contact, as I wrote here. And that just tells you in my entire test, how many do I have? And remember the data silo. So if you have 1,000 already, we don't see those. We only see the 5 you've created during your test run. And you can also say select count where the mailing state is null. Remember earlier we said we want to ensure we don't have any blank addresses, so we're going to hope this count is 0. In fact, that's how we assert.
What does null mean?
Null means no value. It means someone did not enter a value in the field or in the spreadsheet, as Bonnie's going to show in a bit. And for the assert, you just assert true or false. The message is technically optional. I'm going to tell you it's not optional because when it fails and you don't have a message, you will have no idea what went wrong. So give yourself a message. Think about your future self. Think about if you quit and your new admin knows your home address. So on the bottom line there, the system assert 0 equal is equals. It is the equivalence operator in Apex. And the brackets delineate the SOCL. So we're going to select count from contact where mailing state equals null, single equals in SOCL.
That's the hardest part of being a developer, knowing the difference between the syntax. Equal for that equivalency comparison in Apex, and single equal sign for that comparison in SOCL. If you can remember that, you will be an awesome developer forever. That's all you need to know.
And just putting it all together, we're going to create the records with load test, use the SOCL, and then assert. And with that, here's some samples. I'm not going to get too much into it because Bonnie is going to actually show this code, but you see we're loading up some tests with reusable methods here. And these are the actual tests. I know it's a little small here, so we'll turn it over to Bonnie in a minute. And one other thing, if you're going to test a flow instead of a process builder, you need to actually create and start that flow. And you do that with a map. You have to create a map, and all this is on the GitHub, so you can just copy these samples and make them yours. But if you have a map, you can give it your input variables, call the flow with the flow.start, and then assert its output variables. You can also do SOCL here. I didn't show that in this example, but if your flow creates an account or something, you can query for it. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Bonnie.
Okay, so Nate mentioned, by the way, Nate is one of the few people who have an entire instance named after them who's on NA8. Nate. Sorry. Okay. This is GitHub. Don't be afraid of a GitHub. If you've never seen GitHub, it's not as scary as people have led you to believe. I've got a web page up here that explains what we're showing you today, so if we go too fast or you want to repeat or look at it again, and I've also got a link to other resources. And if you go to this view df18 on GitHub, you also get the nerdy, geeky GitHub interface to download all the code.
And we will post that to the session chatter as well as the slides.
And the recording and all
this is being recorded. I don't know. It usually takes a week or two for the recordings to come out. But
okay, CSV file in Excel looks like Excel, right? Everybody's seen this before? Raise your hand if you have not.
All right.
Fooled a few people in the back. This looks just like the data you guys have probably had to load with data loader IO, except that it's only 13 rows instead of 13,000 rows or more. And the other difference is that ID column. That doesn't look like the 15 to 18 character Salesforce ID at all, does it? but it's magic. It is the thing that you want to know about for doing these test data CSV files. If you're an Apex developer in the room, do you like writing test data? Is that your favorite thing? Raise your hand if you love that the best. How often do you have to update your test data? Every time there's a new field, every time there's a new required field, every time there's a new process, every time there's a new validation rule. That's how often you have to update that data, which is what makes CSV data so much better, because it doesn't require code change. So for the developers in the room, that's why you want to do this. For the admins in the room who are developers, you want to do it because you've already got this data at your fingertips. Change it for your test data so that it's anonymized, because you know that Salesforce is going to take it and put it in the hammer test. You don't want to share private data with them. So anonymize this data in the Excel spreadsheet first, and give it these ID numbers that are just integers. They are sequential. I have left no openings, no holes. It's 88 through 99, because maybe I have another file somewhere that is 1 through 87, okay? And that's the great thing about this. I can build multiple CSV files to show the same kind of data in different types of processes, different sort of record types, and I would just use my record type ID as a field here, because record type ID is going to be consistent from your production through all of your sandboxes, same ID. It's a miracle. That's because it's metadata, and that is one of the things that's going to be consistent across your orgs and in that hammer test when you need it. So awesome, fun stuff, and you know that if you've got contacts, they're going to be associated with those accounts. How do you load that if you don't have an account ID? But you do. You put that account ID as an integer in that CSV file. So when you create your contacts, similarly, you give them their ID integer before loading it, and you associate it with the accounts from the account CSV file using the integer values that we already gave in the account CSV file. So easy. Update it on the fly. It is a dream come true. I've in fact got 2 different versions of the same contact CSV file, because in some cases, users actually don't know what the street address is when they put in a contact. And I want to demonstrate in my org what that kind of data looks like as well. So when I need to be able to access this with code, I put it into static resources. That's the type of file storage that Salesforce gives us for things that our code needs to use as part of its operation. So we load it up as a static resource. We can give it any name. The easiest name, of course, is the name for the object type. I've got case data here for case testing, account data, contact data, and I've got that other contact data process defined as a different static resource. But similarly, they all contain CSV files. That's noted here in the MIME type. The MIME type is Excel. It could also be listed as text. I think there's 3 different things it could be listed as. But let's not get caught up in that little detail. I can upload new ones at any time by clicking on the account resource, for example, and just giving it a new version with the edit option. I can download it and review what I've got in there and change it. It's super easy to work with these, and like I said, change them on the fly as needed. So here's my code that uses my CSV files. As you're becoming more and more skilled in the development effort and the development processes, we want you to know how to reuse, maintain, and test. Those are the 3 most important things for any developer to really be good at. Make your stuff reusable, make it maintainable, and make it testable. That's how you get a reliable org. That's how you get reliable development effort. So this is a reusable class that I created that just sets up data for me. And we've already seen maintainable looking at those CSV files and static resources, because anybody can upload that with a new field, with new sets of data, new versions, totally maintainable by anyone in your org. And for the code side, reusable, I've got a class. One of the things for non-developers I want to share with you is that writing code is like writing poetry. You've got a specific format way of laying it out that's required. It's like having stanzas like you had in poetry class, or outlines. You've got certain indentation here that indicates that this is a different level. It is contained within the class. My class is defined at lines 6 through 20, and so that lines up, and then everything else that you see indented is a subset of that class. So you can see two sections that are indented. These are my methods that are reusable. The first one creates accounts and contacts. I'm usually really terrible at naming methods, I will admit, but we can actually tell what this one does because I gave it a pretty good name, create account and contact. For the next one, I did not give it a great name. It creates the account and contact from the address, the contact data without addresses. And yes, this is a terrible name. So within these methods, I'm using a class that Salesforce gives us. You can look at the Apex developer guide, look for the test class and all the methods in it, and you will see documentation for the method called load data. And there's a dot between them. You guys know dot notation because you've done it when you've looked for account.name or account.website or any field or from any object in a formula field. So this is the same way that we reference our classes and methods using that same thing. Within the parentheses, I am passing information to that method. What I'm passing is separated by a comma. So I'm passing two things. The first thing I pass is I tell it what kind of object, well, you've all done setup, you've created custom objects. They're called objects in Salesforce. But in Apex, they're called S-objects, which stands for Salesforce objects, because everything's an object to a developer. My Apex classes are objects. So I had to be able to distinguish my Apex objects from my Salesforce objects. So it's called an S-object now. And again, I'm separating it with that dot. I'm telling it it's an account.SObject type. That's the type of S-object. And the next thing in here is the name of the static resource. We looked at my list of static resources. It's called account here, it's called contact here. But remember I gave one of them a really weird name that was kind of for a different process. That's my contact address process. It is the static resource name, not the CSV file that you loaded into the static resource, just the static resource. So simple stuff. This one I can reuse. So let me show you real quick how I reuse that particular class. This is a test class that I wrote to test the address update process. And it has 3 methods in it. You can see the little subsections. They all start with @is_test. The @ sign here is just an annotation. It means that when Salesforce goes to run this, it knows not to run the line that starts with @. It also knows not to run the lines that are comments that are contained within the /*. So I've got these methods set up, and they call my test setup data class that you all saw. And this one is creating accounts and contacts that are addressless. And then we've got our system asserts. System is an Apex class, just like test is, and you can find it in the Apex developer guide. And we've got our SOCL statement that is just looking to see if any data is there, because it's a data silo. If I don't put the data there, there's no data there. And that's the way we want it to be, because we trust Salesforce not to be looking at our production data, and our users trust us to keep that production data safe. So this is my routine, and let me see if I've got another one loaded somewhere. Here's another class that I set up that just creates the accounts and contacts. So this one's not creating the address list, it's just creating the regular. So it's not actually going to test to see whether or not any processes dealt with the missing addresses. And when I run this, you can see how easy it is to figure out if your process is running.
Control R.
Trying to scroll out, and I'm scrolling in instead. So we'll go here. When you have an error in your test, you get an error message, and if you've put that extra line in to explain what your error messages are, then you will actually see that here. Contacts may not have blank addresses. So that means that somebody's going to go in, create this process that takes care of that problem for us.
This process is just copying the account's information over to the contact. Generally, people want their mail at work.
And that means I can rerun.
That's a rule of our org.
That means I can rerun my test now that I've got the process turned on. And now that I can see my screen better, you can see that my test passed. So the first test didn't check for the addresses. I actually sort of cheated and skipped over here to my test history where I've run it multiple times. Part of testability is being able to run the same test multiple times so that you know, hey, it worked yesterday, it's not working today, what changed that broke it? And that's another really excellent reason to have consistent test data in that data silo.
Another way to put it is, who can I blame?
Find it and solve it. Okay, I'm going to turn it over then to Nate.
So I have a really simple flow here. And if I can figure out how to use this screen. This is an actual working flow. It takes in a number and it doubles it. Takes in an input and doubles it. Probably about as simple as you can get. So my test, again, is using the is test, and I have this map here. I set n to 21. I create the flow, call start, and then I look at the output of the flow. And here I can just say my flow.out and 20 equal 21 times 2. I could have written 42, but I was going to be really simple and make it obvious what I'm doing. If I go ahead and run this, let's see if this, there's a mouse here. I should be using that. There it goes, and in fact passed.
Woohoo! We love it.
So who knows Kevin Porman? Code Fryer? He posted this to Twitter about a month ago, so I asked him if I could use it, and he said by all means. So if you write a test that you're just getting code coverage with without asserts, you're going to get what you get with that. You get what you pay for, right? So it's a fraud, it's a waste of time, it's useless, all the above. So write asserts. So who's excited about Winter 19? Astro on a snowboard. Anyone from Australia here? All right, we don't have to worry about summer 19 yet. So deploy as active is one of the new features for those who's using SFDX. Anyone? A few? All right. You can now deploy orgs via SFDX, the AMP migration tool, as active, so you no longer have to go in and click active. If you're going to do that, there's a preference you have to turn on, and with that preference requires a 75% code coverage requirement. The 75% of all testable flows being auto-launch flows without screens and process builder. And with that, we created a flow coverage object. For those familiar with the Apex test coverage, it's pretty similar. And here's a quick query on how to check that. Again, we are not going to check what nodes you ran, like code coverage. We don't care about how many lines you cover. We just care that you have covered your flows. Here's the GitHub link, and Trailheads, Apex testing, and Lightning Flow are really going to get you where you need to go. And coming in the future, back to that safe harbor slide. Don't believe any of this. No, we're really excited about this. Who is excited? Who likes Flash? Oh, come on. All right. So we are getting rid of Flash with the new flow builder, which should be easier to use. We're also going to have some pre-built flows and processes, which will help. We are going to expose external objects to flow and process builder, so that'll be exciting. And improved testing and monitoring is in the future. We know that our testing capabilities aren't where they are. This is a huge start, what we showed today, but we know it's not everything it needs to be. So here is the new, very pretty flow builder.
Woo.
Yes. And it is in pilot now for, it's a private pilot, but in, what's the next one?
Spring 19.
Spring 19, yeah. Spring 19 will be GA, so. And last week we actually launched App Exchange for Flow Solutions.
Woohoo.
So you can, ISVs have already started posting up things that you can just drop in based on industries. We're excited about things like Vidyard. You can include videos in your visual flows. You can, task array tasks are in there. Knowledge articles for those of you doing service desk work. You can divert customers to your knowledge articles, and hopefully they don't call you, right? They can solve themselves. And here's just an example of you can just drag in a task array node into the new flow builder. And since this is the first session, I'm going to tell you to go to all these other sessions about flow, but
Take a picture.
this is posted up on the chatter already, but you definitely want to go to the admin keynote. Who's going to that? All right. Platform keynote as well. It'll be a good one. Less of you. All right. And we have some time for Q&A. Please use the microphone. This is being recorded.
Oh, come on up to the mic.
Yeah, come up to the mic and.
This is really good timing because this is a subject that our team has debated fiercely about. We
Can
want
you
to
pull it down?
Okay.
Yeah, thank
we
you.
want to start using test-driven development, right?
Test-driven development, yay!
Hey.
But then we think like the point of Salesforce is that you can do validations or process builder, point and click, right? You don't need an actual developer
Right.
or code review to do that kind of things. But if you have to do this, on a process builder or a flow or even like a validation, does that offset the
Are you
the time
asking
to
why,
market?
why you need to write Apex classes to test it?
Yeah,
So
is it best practice?
You
Like,
want
Yes.
to
we
do
have to.
test-driven development because it gives you permission to make mistakes. Because first thing that you do is not going to work the way you actually wanted it to typically in the world, because if it does, you should have taken a bigger, more complex challenge to begin with. So you write the test that is the thing you want to accomplish, and you run whatever you've created against that test. And when that works, you create a new test that's more challenging, and you create the more challenging product to address that. You can't do test-driven development without writing tests. So that's one reason to write them. It's not going to slow you down. It's actually going to speed you up, because if you're trying to figure out where the problem is and the thing that doesn't work when the user says, why doesn't this do what I need it to do? If you've got the tests, you can see how what they're trying to do is different than what you designed your product for in the first place.
Yeah.
And you can change the test with that CSV file, so you don't have to go through an elaborate multi-step development process. So I don't think it's going to slow you down at all.
Yeah, and with test-driven development, you often start in a room with your product team or whoever is defining how the org should work, and you can write the test before you even write the process or the flow, and have the test fail, so you know that your tester. You're going to create the rule, my org should never have a contact without an address. Write a test for that before you write the process, and that way you know that test is going to behave, and then when you write the process, you get to see it work, and you're happy, and you can go home.
So how would you deploy the static file in production? Is it automated or is it a manual step?
To say that again?
That static CSV file?
Yeah, the
How
static
does
CSV, push 1.
One?
Yeah.
One.
You would upload it to your sandbox and change set it over, usually like.
Or you can just press the new button
Or-
in
yeah.
production. Quite frankly, it's a static resource. If it doesn't have code, it's not going to be touched. So
You do it manually before the actual deployment
Yeah.
to production.
Yes,
you can do it with the deployment or separate from.
or as part of a
They
change
both-
set. So
Yep.
it's considered okay. Next.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
For spring 19,
Yes.
you had Flow Scheduler. Could you give us a little background on that?
for spring 19. Let me. Which one? Spring 19. Lightning scheduler. I actually don't. I didn't write the slide, unfortunately.
So no, we
Wendy,
can't.
are you in the room? Or Jason? Nope. I will find out and post it up to Chatter.
There is a project online on GitHub that Doug Ayers did on scheduling Process Builder and Flow. So actually, if you need a solution for that now, I would look at what he's done. He's done some pretty awesome tools that he has done as open source.
I have a question around users. Typically, when we build a test class, we build it for the user group that we're targeting, but we also do regression against user groups that wouldn't be affected. So how do creating test users apply in this process?
You had to ask the tough question.
No, that's not a hard
thank you.
question.
No, users are.
Users are files. You put a user CSV file in, and the profile is the ID that you just pull straight out of your org because it's metadata.
The one thing you need to be careful of users are not data siloed. So don't create a user with a username that already exists.
Right. We
Yeah,
typically run
right.
into problems
But-
with that. We create a
yes.
fictitious user, but we use a set profile or
Right. Yes.
characteristics of that profile.
Yeah,
But we want to make sure to run as different users.
Profiles and perm sets will be there. So create a new user with a random name that won't conflict. And then, you can even do it at test.yourcompany.com, right, to make sure it doesn't conflict. And then create those users and run. And then we didn't talk about, but Apex allows you to do run as a user
Yes,
for your
yes,
test.
exactly.
Yes. So, yeah.
Thanks
Okay.
for bringing that
Thank you.
up.
Thank you.
Hi, I have a general question about Lightning flows.
Sure.
We use flows to automate and as a self-service solution in our org. And when I do...
Thank you all for coming. If you have to hurry to the next session, go ahead.
I had a difficulty to find the summary or count of all the records. Like, how we do a lookup.
Yeah.
We have filters and we get a lookup of the number of records we want.
Yeah.
And to find the number of records we fetched, I have to assign them to a collection object and run a loop and assign to an assignment. I saw in future there are cool stuff coming in. Is there any way?
Actually, last release, so let's see, there is no fall release, right, Steve? Yeah, okay. But in the summer, you can now use in the assignment section, there's now a size of operator that you can do on your collection. So that's the way to do it. Yep.
Yep, thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for sharing the CSV trick. Screen-based flows,
Not testable yet.
not testable yet.
Back to this bottom.
But
yeah.
if you are practicing good developer practices, your screens are separate from your actual logic,
Yeah,
and you
business.
can have that auto launch flow that is a subflow that you can connect to any screens you want, and they can be separate.
Yes.
Then you can test all you want.
That is the best practice. Create a
Everything is
subflow.
doable.
But back to this future slide with the safe harbor.
I'm just getting started with the whole Apex right now, and the whole testing, and the static resource is awesome. Also stumbled on Test Data Factory. Which is the best use case, or when would you use Test Data Factory versus the CSV?
I would use Test Data Factory when I had a record that required more than one related ID to be associated with it, or an object type, because that is something that test load data won't give you.
Yeah.
Perfect.
But Test Factory is code, which means it's
Right.
always got to go through all that
Exactly.
to get to
Yeah.
production. So,
Right. All right, perfect, thank you.
yep.
Hello. Could you put the flow coverage SQL in your GitHub?
Yes, I will be
Yes.
there.
Cool.
Thank
Thanks.
you for reminding us.
Yeah. Anyone else? All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for coming. Bye.